Okay, welcome everybody to this third and final GitHub Skill Up for Maintainers video. In this session, we will talk about how to resolve at least some simple merge conflicts using GitHub's web interface. This session is probably only going to make sense if you've already watched recording number 2, where we looked at reviewing pull requests. And will make even more sense if you've also watched recording number 1, where we looked at managing issues and labels and this kind of thing. And that should become clear why in a few moments when we start looking at this last pull request that we need to review. Before I start sharing my screen, I'll try to briefly explain what a merge conflict is. Git is a program that is designed to handle versions of files and not only the versions, but the specific changes that have been made between versions. It's a tool that is very, very helpful for people that are collaborating together on the same set of files. And one of the reasons for that is because it makes it relatively easy to merge together different versions of the same file that different collaborators have been working on. So collaborator A might have been making some changes to one part of the file, while collaborator B was on their system making changes to a different part of the file. And then Git makes it fairly easy to take those changes from collaborator B and merge them into the version of the file that collaborator A has, so that now collaborator A has a updated version of the file with both sets of changes included in it. However, from time to time, people will make changes to files that cannot be automatically merged together like that. Sometimes this happens because a file name has changed, for example, and Git doesn't really know what to do when the file has suddenly had its name changed. But in a lot of cases, we see what we're about to see with this pull request that we're going to review, which is that two people have simultaneously been making changes to the same part of the same file. And then Git doesn't really know what you want in the end, whether you want one of the changed versions of that line or the other changed version of that line, or you want some combination of the two. And we'll take a look at what that looks like in a moment. But when that happens, it is what is referred to in the world of Git as a merge conflict, some kind of conflict between the changes that means that Git can't do that automatic merge anymore. And what usually happens then is that you get some message from Git on the command line or from GitHub itself, as we'll see, that says, I need a human being to solve this for me, effectively. I can't do this automatically anymore. I need you to intervene and decide what the appropriate way of resolving these two conflicting versions of the file is going to be. Okay, so let's share our screen again. We're back on this example repository that we looked at before, and now we've only got one pull request left open because we reviewed and merged the other two in the previous session. This is fix oven temperature conversion. And if you remember from session 1, there was this issue number 2 where the person was reporting that their cinnamon rolls had got burned. This example lesson is a recipe for making some sourdough cinnamon rolls. And the text of the issue, well, we can see a preview of it here. It says, I tried the recipe and unfortunately the rolls came out pretty burned. And the person went on to say that they think it's because the temperature conversion between Fahrenheit and Celsius was done incorrectly, resulting in a Celsius temperature listed in the recipe that's 100 degrees higher than it should be, which is quite a lot higher. And it's perhaps no surprise that these rolls burnt as a result. So let's take a look at the Files Changed tab, just like we did before with reviewing a pull request. Now that we've read the description and so on, we understand the context. It's time to look at the actual changes. And we can see here that this line, number 37, is being replaced with, well, 2 lines. This is a mistake in the templating, but it doesn't matter. It's splitting this bullet point over 2 lines, which is going to be okay for the final result. But the change that's important here is happening there, right? So here where it says 290C, here it now says 190C, which is the correct temperature conversion and the temperature that we want to have in our recipe. And so we know this fix will resolve that issue, will fix the temperature that's listed in our recipe, and will make everybody happier in the future because their cinnamon rolls won't come out burned, or at least won't come out burned because of this mistake. So we can go ahead and review the changes like we did before. We're going to choose approve. We're going to thank them because it's always important to thank them. Thank you for fixing this. And sorry again about the burned cinnamon rolls. Submit review. And then because we've approved, we can go ahead and merge. Well, we could do if it wasn't for the fact that we've got now a conflict between the changes that are made in this pull request and some of the changes that we merged in one of the earlier pull requests. So you can see here, this branch has conflicts that must be resolved. You can use the web editor or the command line to resolve conflicts before continuing. It tells us which file the conflicts are in. But also, and so you could use the command line if you wanted to, but if we click this button, resolve conflicts, then what we can do is take a look at this conflict and actually fix it as well, all while staying within the same browser window. So when I click that button, the interface changed completely to a new one that we haven't really looked at yet, and that I only ever encounter when I'm doing these kinds of conflict resolutions. And we would jump straight down in the page to the first, and in this case, only conflict in the file. Now, merge conflicts that Git is showing to you look weird. What has happened is that all these additional lines with weird special character symbols in them have appeared in our file. And what it's important to understand is how to read these conflicts when they're put into a file like this. So what we can see is this is the name of the branch that the pull request was being made from. And then next to that, there's a bunch of these less than symbols, crocodiles all facing in the same direction. And then you've got underneath them on line 38, the version of the line in the pull request. So you can see here we've got the 190. Then we've got on line 39, a bunch of equals symbols. And then on line 40, the version of the line that exists in our repository now. So in the main branch, indeed, that's what we see down here. Our crocodiles are facing in the other direction here. This is a greater than symbol, and then the word main afterwards. So this is the version of the line in the main branch of our repository. This is the version of the line in the pull request branch on our repository. And so what we can see here is that we've got 190 here, we got 290 here, but we've got the typo fixed in butter on this version of the line, and we've still got the typo batter in the version that's got the fixed temperature. And so this was why this conflict has arisen, because this line was one of the ones that got changed when the typos got fixed in one of the pull requests we merged in the previous recording. And so Git doesn't know what to do here because we're changing one part of the line, but the other part of the line remains unchanged. So it says, okay, at this point, I need a human to tell me what version of this line you want to have in the end. And this is a nice demonstration of how to resolve these kinds of conflicts, because unlike in most cases where you typically choose one version and delete the other version, here we actually want to keep a combination of the two different lines. We want to keep one part of what's already in our main branch, that's the typo that's been fixed, but we also want to include one of the changes in our pull request branch, that's the temperature conversion that's been fixed. And so what we do to resolve this conflict is we want to get rid of all these special characters and be left with only a line that looks the way that we want it to. And so what we're going to do is we're going to select from the start of the word butter here up to the start of the word batter here, and we're going to delete everything between. And so now we've got the corrected temperature conversion and we've got the typo fixed in the word butter. And then the other thing that we want to make sure that we do is remove these other lines with the special symbols in them. So this one and this one. And we're left with only lines 37 and 38 as we want them to be. So if you've got multiple conflicts like that throughout your file, you'll need to scroll down to look for them and do the same thing, fix them. Fixing them can be whatever it looks like for you, whatever you want those lines to look like in the end. You're the maintainer, you've kind of got the authority on that. But the important thing is to make sure that all those lines with the special symbols in, with the less than and greater than signs, with the equal signs, those have all been removed in the end. And you're left with a file that looks the way that you want it to. If the file's really long and there's a few conflicts in there, you can use these controls that are at the top of the page. This will say instead of 1 conflict, 13 or something. And these previous and next buttons will then jump you down to the next unresolved conflict for you to fix. And once you've done this as many times as you need to, and there's no more conflicts left in the file, at that point you can click this mark as resolved button.
I got a question, Toby.
Go ahead, Sharon.
So now that we've removed all of that stuff, do we have to keep it on 2 lines, 37 and 38, or could we bring the find up to 37? Would that make a difference?
We could bring it up to 37. You can change. Okay. You kind of got complete freedom at this point to change the file as much as you want to. I strongly recommend that you don't start making changes to some other part of the file that's got nothing to do with the changes that you were working on before, because that's kind of bad Git hygiene, I suppose. Like, it's better to have a nice commit history that makes sense. But you could do that if you wanted to. And sometimes, you know, the conflicts are so big that you do end up what people would often refer to as like refactoring the code, if it's software, to reorganize things in a way that makes sense with those two things merged together. But here, yeah, let's do that. So we'll move fine back up to the previous line like that. And so now we've got number 37. And then when we're sure we're happy, I clicked the mark resolved before, and now I can click commit merge. And this then takes us back to the pull request, the kind of standard pull request interface that we're used to seeing, to the conversation tab. And if I scroll down, then you'll see that once again, we've got these automated checks being run because I just committed new changes to the branch. And we could wait for those to complete and for everything to pass before merging. But just like before, I'm pretty confident that this is going to be okay. So I'm going to click merge now for the sake of time, and merge again and delete the branch. And now we've got a nice, clean, empty list of pull requests, and we've only got one issue left open. So what happened there, because that pull request was marked as fixing a particular issue, that issue got automatically closed by GitHub when that pull request got merged. And we're left only with the one that we're waiting for the curriculum advisory committee to come and talk to us about. Again, if you don't understand what I just said there, please go back and watch the first recording. Thank you for listening. I hope this was helpful. I suppose one last point before I sign off. I said that you could use this web interface for relatively simple merge conflicts, these things like there's 2 different versions of this line. I need you to tell me what to do about that, please. But in the more complicated scenarios, especially where things like file names have changed and things like that, GitHub isn't really able to help you do that through this web interface. And it's at that point that you would need to start working on the command line to try to resolve the conflicts there. If you're not comfortable working with Git on the command line, then if you encounter something like this while you're maintaining your lessons, then feel free to reach out to me or another member of the curriculum team or to the maintainer community lead as well, and we'll be happy to help you. I'll leave a link in the video description to a guide from the GitHub documentation about how you can do this on the command line as well. So you can read that if you like. Thanks again for listening. I hope this was helpful. Thank you very, very much for volunteering to be a maintainer for the Carpentries. It makes a huge difference and I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to supporting you as you do that maintenance work in the future. Thanks again, and thanks to you, Aaron, for being an excellent audience. See you next time.